That was pretty emotional. I've known Val for decades.
He was such a great guy and such a wonderful spirit and had such,
This is not some twisted April Fool's prank. Val Kilmer, one of Hollywood's most versatile and unforgettable stars, has actually passed away at the age of 65. Yes, the headlines dropped on April 1st, and the timing sparked chaos online. But let's be absolutely clear, this is no joke. Credible sources from the New York Times to the Associated Press have confirmed it, and the family has spoken. In this video, we'll walk you through the bizarre timing, the shockwaves it sent across social media, and the real cause behind his sudden passing. We'll also celebrate his extraordinary life and career, spanning from comedic genius in Top Secret and real genius to larger-than-life roles as Iceman, Jim Morrison, and Batman. Buckle up because we've got a lot to cover in the next 20 minutes. Let's dive in. Picture this. You open your phone on April 1st, and every single feed says, Val Kilmer has died. Naturally, your first reaction is, yeah, right, April Fools. The internet was rife with confusion and denial. People across Twitter, Instagram, and Reddit demanded, prove it, or which site started this rumor. But as the hours passed, major outlets like CNN and the New York Times released official confirmations. The Associated Press reported receiving an email from Val's daughter, Mercedes Kilmer, explicitly stating her father died from complications due to pneumonia. Suddenly, what everyone assumed was a tasteless hoax became painfully real. Fans who'd followed Kilmer's health journey, particularly his fight with throat cancer, were in shock. How could this be true? Wasn't he beating cancer? In a cruel twist, pneumonia proved fatal.
Every moment with Val Kilmer was a joy. He is undoubtedly one of the great actors of his generation.
Mercedes Kilmer emerged as the primary spokesperson for the family, sending a short but heartfelt message confirming her father's passing on the night of April 1st, 2025. She wrote that he was surrounded by family and friends, ensuring he didn't die alone or in a sterile ICU. She also detailed how a sudden bout of pneumonia rapidly progressed in his compromised respiratory system, compromised by years of treatments and surgeries for his throat cancer. Even more heartbreaking, she noted that Val had been in relatively good spirits leading up to this. He'd been talking about new creative projects, ideas for a painting series, possibly more documentary work, maybe even dabbling in stage directing. His children, Mercedes and Jack, had high hopes that he'd continue to thrive post-cancer. Then pneumonia struck fast. By the time doctors realized how severe it was, Kilmer was too weak to battle it off. No official funeral details have yet been shared, although rumors suggest a private ceremony may be followed by a public memorial. Fans are already voicing hopes for a tribute special that celebrates his iconic roles in film and television.
I was madly in love with Val Kilmer, and he left.
Within minutes of the news, tributes from Val's colleagues and admirers poured across social media. Josh Brolin posted, Val was the spark that lit a room, brilliant, unpredictable, and deeply passionate. Meanwhile, Francis Ford Coppola, who didn't direct Kilmer in a feature, but knew him socially, called him a wonderful soul and a joy to be around. Michael Mann, who famously directed Kilmer in Heat, said he was the rare actor who could shift from comedic to lethal in seconds. His passion for authenticity fueled every Cher, who was once romantically linked to Kilmer, tweeted, "Fly free, my friend, our late-night laughs, your insane sense of humor, and your unstoppable spirit. I'll miss them forever." She even included a short video of them joking around backstage at some event decades ago, leaving fans teary-eyed. The Top Gun community, from Tom Cruise to the official franchise account, echoed one sentiment: we lost our Iceman. In a heartfelt Instagram post, Tom Cruise said, "We started out as on-screen rivals, became collaborators, and ended as dear friends. Rest easy, Ice." Instantly, fans flooded comments with quotes like, "You can be my wingman anytime," as the line took on a new poignancy. For fans, April 1st was a roller coaster of emotion. Some initially got angry, assuming it was a hoax. Others were heartbroken the second they realized it was confirmed. Reddit boards dedicated to classic films lit up with reaction threads, thousands of comments deep. People posted their favorite Val Kilmer moments, like Doc Holliday swaggering into Tombstone, or Jim Morrison belting out Break On Through in that iconic Oliver Stone biopic. One Redditor wrote, "I grew up watching Real Genius every summer. I can practically quote Mitch and Chris Knight's dialogue by heart. Val's comedic timing was out of this world. Another posted, I spent half my life quoting, "I'll be your Huckleberry." Hard to believe that voice is gone. Memorial watch parties sprang up almost instantly, groups on Discord and other platforms scheduling Val Kilmer movie nights. Some plan to do an entire day's marathon of his classics, from Top Secret to Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, celebrating both the comedic genius and the dramatic heavyweight. The internet community's transition from suspicion to deep, genuine mourning is a testament to just how beloved Kilmer truly was. Now that we've addressed the tragic breaking news, let's rewind to understand why this loss cut so deep. Born in Los Angeles in 1959, Val Kilmer showed artistic inclinations from a young age, writing poetry, dabbling in theater, and eventually becoming the youngest person admitted to Juilliard's drama program at just 17. He kicked off his career in the early 1980s, starting on stage and moving into film with comedic gems like Top Secret, 1984, a zany spoof that showcased his knack for musical performance. Then came Real Genius, 1985, where he played a wisecracking science prodigy, Chris Knight. These early roles cemented him as a comedic force with serious star power, but he wasn't content to stay in comedy alone. By the late 1980s, he was already pushing boundaries. He starred in Ron Howard's fantasy adventure Willow, 1988, as Mad Mardigan, a scene-stealing swordsman full of swagger and wit. This period revealed his ability to slide effortlessly between humor, adventure, and the beginnings of more serious undertones. Those who knew him say even then, behind the scenes, he was aiming higher. He wanted roles that challenged him as an actor and tested his dramatic range. Then came Top Gun in 1986, the role that would spark decades of Iceman references. Val Kilmer's portrayal of Lieutenant Tom Iceman Kazansky struck the perfect counterbalance to Tom Cruise's cocky Maverick. The tension, the aviator shades, and the culminating handshake made cinematic history. But if he'd stopped there, we'd only have a fraction of Val Kilmer's brilliance. In 1991, he poured his soul into playing Jim Morrison in The Doors. This was method acting at its finest. He spent months immersing himself in Morrison's world, down to wearing the same clothes and actually singing many of the performances. Surviving band members were famously unnerved by how accurately he captured Morrison's essence. 2 years later, as Doc Holliday in Tombstone, 1993, Kilmer delivered a performance critics have called one of the greatest Western sidekicks in film history. I'm Your Huckleberry is still quoted everywhere, from barbecues to fan conventions. The complexity he brought, charming, roguish, and dying of tuberculosis, displayed his ability to be comedic one moment and deadly serious the next. In 2014, rumors became fact. Val Kilmer was diagnosed with throat cancer. He initially kept it private, owing partly to his personal faith, Christian Science, and a desire for privacy. By 2016 to 2017, though, the public could no longer ignore the noticeable changes. He'd lost significant weight, frequently wore scarves or bandanas over his neck, and his once distinctively smooth voice became raspy. He underwent chemotherapy, radiation, and at least 2 tracheostomies, a physically and emotionally devastating ordeal for anyone, let alone an actor whose voice was integral to his craft. Yet his spirit remained unbroken. In 2020, he published his memoir, I'm Your Huckleberry, openly discussing his life, faith, regrets, and enduring love for acting. Soon after, a documentary simply titled Val premiered at Cannes, stitched together from decades of his personal home video footage. It offered an intimate glimpse into the frenetic, passionate, and sometimes fraught life he led behind the scenes. And then came 2022's Top Gun Maverick, a heartfelt cameo that used AI technology to restore some of his old vocal tone, allowing Iceman to speak once more on screen. Audiences erupted in applause and tears. For many fans, that scene was more than a nostalgic callback. It was a triumph over adversity, a sign that Val Kilmer's legacy was alive and thriving, even if his voice had changed drastically. So how did pneumonia slip in and take him so unexpectedly? Family friends indicate that Kilmer was carefully managing his post-cancer health. Pneumonia, however, can be especially lethal for those with compromised lungs or immune systems. In the weeks leading up to his death, he reportedly battled flu-like symptoms that escalated quickly. By the time doctors identified advanced pneumonia, his body was too depleted to fight back effectively. Mercedes and Jack Kilmer, along with close friends, were by his side at his Los Angeles home. Some say he was able to exchange final words of love and gratitude, even if his voice was faint. A family acquaintance commented that he left this world on his own terms, at home, feeling safe and loved exactly how he wanted. The timing, April 1st, was an uncanny twist of fate that left fans grappling with whether to believe the news. Yet those final hours were apparently filled with warmth, a reflection of a man who spent decades enthralling audiences and defying the odds. Almost immediately, you saw an outpouring that transcended typical Hollywood grief. Robert Downey Jr. called him one of the real ones, a guy who never stopped seeking truth in his roles. Kevin Bacon, who briefly worked with him early on, tweeted, "You inspired an entire generation, Val. Rest easy." Even critics historically tough on him wrote extended retrospectives praising his range. Some pointed out how he challenged the boundaries of leading man by taking on offbeat or experimental projects. Others noted that while he could be branded difficult, that passion is what fueled performances that stand the test of time. Fans orchestrated hashtag movements like RIP Val Kilmer, Forever Iceman, and Huckleberry Forever, flooding Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with clips, quotes, and heartfelt messages. Petitions began circulating to name a day in his honor. Some want December 1st recognized as Val Kilmer Day. Whether that gains traction remains to be seen, but the communal grief and celebration of his life is evidence of how deeply he touched people. At this point, you might be asking, what exactly is Val Kilmer's legacy? The answer is multifaceted. He was an actor who never shied away from creative or physical risks, lying in tubs of ice to simulate Doc Holliday's tuberculosis, immersing himself fully into Jim Morrison's psyche, braving surgeries and a drastically altered voice just to reappear as Iceman. Cinematically, he left us with a canon of films that span nearly every genre: wacky 80s comedies, blockbuster action flicks, biographical dramas, westerns, and even Shakespearean stage work. He performed Hamlet on stage and tackled Mark Twain on tour. His difficult reputation, many now see it through the lens of unwavering dedication. He was a perfectionist in an industry where compromise is constant. Co-stars often described him as intense, yes, but also generous. He'd debate a single line of dialogue if he thought it would improve authenticity. In his memoir, he confessed to regrets about not always communicating more gently, but he never apologized for his passion. That zeal for better or worse is part of why his roles resonate so strongly. And so here we are, a beloved star, gone on a day when everyone hoped it was just a gag. April 1st, 2025, will forever be the date we lost Val Kilmer. Yet beyond that date, we have a treasure trove of performances and the memory of a man who refused to let the harshest battles define him. Whether you're a Tombstone fanatic quoting, "I'm your Huckleberry," a Top Gun devotee who grew up idolizing Iceman, or a theater buff who appreciated his bold stage work, there's no denying the hole he leaves behind. But with the outpouring of tributes and stories, it's clear his spirit continues to soar. Perhaps that's the best measure of any artist's legacy: how deeply they touched our lives, how vividly their work endures. Thank you for spending this time with us, remembering Val Kilmer's life and the strange circumstances of his final day. If you want to honor him, why not cue up one of his movies tonight? Watch Real Genius for a good laugh, revisit Heat for intense drama, or lose yourself in The Doors to see method acting at its most mesmerizing. And remember, if you saw this news and thought it was an April Fool's prank, you weren't alone. The confusion was part of the heartbreak. But perhaps Val, the man who always pushed boundaries and messed with expectations, would see some poetic twist in that. Rest in peace, Val Kilmer. You'll forever be our Huckleberry, our Iceman, and one of Hollywood's most compelling figures.